Hey y'all, welcome to the Standing on Business podcast, where ambition meets action. From career moves to life lessons,
our podcast is dedicated to supporting you as you navigate both the personal and professional growth journey,
ultimately giving you the confidence to always stand in your truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Standing on Business podcast. I'm your co-host Bianca.
And I'm your co-host Amari.
And today we're talking about what it looks like when your vision is speaking louder than your routine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a perfect conversation about pivoting. And we want to talk about, that feeling when you feel the pull for something greater and the moment you know that you're built for more and also that you're still in the middle of that balance, right? So we all have been there at some point to where it's like we talked about this. We talked about a 9 to 5, but now we're going to talk about pivoting and, wanting to do more, wanting to have a side hustle, whether you call it that or whether to jump full into entrepreneurship. So, it's going to be a lot of stuff today. And I think this is like a very special episode for us.
It is. And I'm glad that you highlight it because this is our last episode of season 1. That is insane to even say. But we've grown so much through this journey with you all. And we're so excited for what the rest of this year will look like, what the rest of our journey with the podcast will look like. I think that this is really just a testament. You guys have watched us prioritize our pivot. Like, this is our pivot season, and we're literally living it with you guys. So we're building this plane as we're flying it. And it's been a labor of love. We've learned so much. We've grown so much, and we've gotten such great feedback. So, like, we're excited to stay invigorated with this work and to continue with prioritizing our pivot. Maybe, not formally because we still are corporate girlies and love our day jobs. But this is so intentional and so special, rather, because this is our real life, and we're going on this journey with other people who are trying to navigate their real lives as well.
Yeah, y'all are watching us learn.
Yeah.
And be on that journey because y'all are with us.
Yes, so we thank you just for allowing us to be able to come across your airwaves, your video channels, whatever it is that you tune in and tap in with us, because we don't take it for granted either. I think even in the last 6 months or so, our lives have changed. My life, especially because I was 100% all in corporate. She was she had her flavors.
I have my babies that I'm working on.
But like, this is my baby for sure. And it is very nice. And it's been great doing this with you. Like, I couldn't imagine this even lasting. And if we're being honest, we're talking about prioritizing pivot. The first episode we uploaded was at like 2 a.m. I think just as like a test to make sure that it would actually load to YouTube and like Spotify and Apple Music and all the things. And I looked on the laptop, saw my face on YouTube, and asked Bianca to delete it.
And I said no.
And she told me no. Yes. Because she was being an advocate for helping me prioritize my pivot. And we'll get into all of the things of like what to do, what are the signs to know that you're ready to move. But I think ultimately, and we talk about this a lot throughout the season, but community is so important because those are really your propellers when you feel distracted or discouraged. When you feel like, I don't have this or I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm speaking that truly from myself. And like, hopefully I'm going to watch this and see myself, tell myself this. But like, you have been such a motivator for me in being a community, being a system of support for me, because we wouldn't have gotten this far without you.
I would say you too, girl. I'm very proud of you in stepping out of your comfort zone. Because as you said, you did not want you barely like to take pictures.
I don't take pictures. I don't get on Instagram. I don't go outside. Like, very much, you got to catch this in traffic when I, am moving and shaking to see it. But
it's beautiful to see you like shine and like, I know you're an amazing person, and I've always seen that. And I was like, girl, you're going to make us famous. Like, please, like, you are the friend where it's like, please start making TikToks. Like, please start making videos. There's money to be made. And I'm glad you stepped outside of that and just took a leap of faith with me and just really was like, okay, we're doing this. And I think we're doing great. And I am so happy that everybody, we've gotten great feedback, and we definitely want to thank y'all for listening. Because
100%.
Yes, because this episode is going to be a good one. We talked about everything from networking, mentorship. We've had amazing guests, mental health, We've talked about just
education. We've talked about
education
so much
so
across
much.
this time frame. And
Yeah.
I think too, like, it is a prize for us to be able to look back at that growth and have it kind of like immortalized of like now we have something that's archival to look back. It's like our digital scrapbook almost.
It is. You know, I love memories. I am the memory friend, and this is something that we'll always have and always share.
Yeah.
And so we're doing it together.
No, and I love that for us. And I really, it's so funny because we're saying a lot of the same things that we said in the first episode, but now with like confidence and calm. Before, child, we was faking it till we make it. We were just doing the best and not truly faking it. It was a calculated risk. But this has become, you know, a source of fulfillment for us. While yes, it's a labor of love, and like, you know, in future episodes and future seasons, we'll talk about the breakdown of what it really is to pivot into, you know, the podcast world and what all that entails. Because, baby, this is a production. Y'all see us. If y'all can see what we see looking at y'all, y'all be like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. It's an operation, but I think most importantly, this has become a form of therapy, at least for me. And as long as it continues to feel that way, I will continue to do it. So I love it. I'm thankful that you have encouraged me and empowered me. And hopefully, you know, as we go through today's episode, we offer more people those gems and we just continue to take, again, what we have garnered within our friendship and sharing that and scaling it with the world.
I know. That is the perfect way to just like start getting into what we're talking about, prioritizing your pivot. Because how to even, the pivot is scary. The pivot is not easy, especially when you are balancing so much. So whether you're, like we said before in previous episodes, like people wear so many hats, right? So whether you, and that includes your family duties, whether you're a mother, aunt, cousin, you know, doing those duties from your corporate life. We talked a lot about self-care and wellness prior, but it's like balancing all that. And then now it's like, okay, I have that urge to do more. So we're going to talk about that pivot and just, you know, we're going to talk about how to move through it.
No, I love that. And I think you bring you bring a perfect segue into how to recognize when you're ready to pivot. I know for me, it came in a season of a lot of transition. And I was kind of just like, you know what? F it. Like, this has been something that's been on my mind for 5 years at that point. Like, I had been coming to you with the same idea of wanting to start a podcast and wanting to put a platform together for us to kind of fill some gaps and some voids for different communities. But also, I think, share the amazing gems and resources that we've gotten through our mentors. Like, we wouldn't be here alone and on our own merit and just credentials. And I know I've credential jaw down to the ground this season. And it matters, but I also think having the right people around you is just as important as a certificate or a formal education. And so I think the first sign, at least for me, when trying to figure out how I was going to pivot or if I needed to pivot or what was going on, was I felt like I had done everything in my life that I was supposed to do and something still didn't feel right.
I agree.
Like I was always a high performer. Like Amari Green never made a C until college. And that was because Amari Green was in college having a time freshman year. But aside from that, like I was always the person who was in an extracurricular activity. I told you guys before in our first episode, I've had a job since I was 14. Like I was always Miss Do It All. Right. And once I had done all the things on my goal list and I still felt unfulfilled, I was like, oh, I did what was like asked of me or what was designed of me, but I don't think that I've necessarily found my thing that is tied to purpose or tied to a passion. Like I'm passionate about the work that I do.
And you do it well.
And I do it well, but I know that I'm capable of more. And going back to like you saying like I'm such a hermit crab, my focus has always been being impactful. I could care less about being influential or an influencer or being public facing. To be honest, if we could do all of this on audio, I would. But I think when you start to find your niche in the world, you blossom and you butterfly into what is supposed to be for you. But when you start to feel like something's off when you've done everything that you can do, I think that's a sign that maybe even speaking to the comparison of more metamorphosis. you need to kind of go into a cocoon and isolate, and not in the sense of like, oh, like this is so hard, but just take time away from all of the things that influence you, like quiet
Right.
out
And
some
take a
of the
step
noise.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. And like disconnect yourself from all of the things that are stimulating you for you to really figure out, what is my benchmark of where I am now? Am I where I thought I would be at this age or by this milestone or whatever it is? And use that to help guide you to bring you back onto the path that you were always destined to walk.
Yeah, and I agree with you because I feel like for me, it's like the same thing. I just feel like I wasn't as aware. Like it was to a point where it's like, okay, we work so hard, like you said, we go through school, graduate school, we get, the fellowship, we're in our leadership roles, and it's like, wow, we're so young, and it's like, okay, I'm literally accomplished so much, hitting financial goals, and it's like, like it's weird because it's like, okay, I want to do more, but I'm at the place where I said I wanted to be. I'm just there maybe earlier than I thought, and it's great, but it's like it's really makes you start to think about, okay, what is my purpose? And I like to say, if something is bothering you or nagging you, it means you're supposed to do something about it, and that's most likely your purpose. And so with that, it's like for me, it was like kind of honestly like probably a year, maybe 6 months before I even started something entrepreneurial. And it's so funny because me and Amari were on the phone when I actually started it, but my nag was that I hated hearing the narrative that there was nothing to do in New Orleans, and that like,
and maybe I was the one saying
yes,
it. I was
she was
down
one of the
bad
ones.
that,
She
I was
was
in your ear like, I can't do this. There's nothing to do.
And just for a city that I love so much and always have, I'm like, there's more. I know there's more. I'm a person who I go out and explore, and we talked about that in previous episodes.
My little Dora.
Yes, I know my little Dora
in a backpack because she gonna have what she need and keep going.
Yeah, I used to bring. It's so funny, those portable GPSs that you used to have in your cars. I used to take that out with me, y'all. This like 2014, 2015. Kara and Sierra could like attest to this.
This is a deep cut. Yeah. I've never heard this.
So I used to take the ones that you could put on your dashboard. I used to take it out with me and go in the French Quarter and like just find different places and things to do. It was very funny. But shout out to when they made that. This was before maps, clearly.
I'm crying. It was like a GoPro or like a drone for like navigation
for the car. And I would take it out and walk with you. But that is to say that I had a narrative that I was it just bothered me so much. And so from there, I just literally was on the phone with her, and I was like, it was like almost I could hear God clearly telling me, start it, just do it. And I just flipped this food page that had 300 followers into the NOLA Collective. And I have a post on there from March 1st, 2023, and I've never edited the post, because what I said as my goal and my mission is still reigning true to this day. And so that is just a little bit of my story and how I went from feeling just what you were saying of like, I fulfilled things, but I don't know where I'm going, to feeling that nag and just doing something about it.
Yeah. No, I think for me, mine was, I'd always had a goal of all I ever wanted. Once I really figured out what I wanted to do in healthcare, I was like, I want to be a director because it's just my title, like it's nice. It sounds good. Like as a capstone career wise, I wanted to work for Emory Healthcare of Atlanta, and I wanted to make six figures. Yeah. Like I just, those are my three things of like, God, if I can have these things by 30, I'm set for life.
Yeah.
And I also say that in understanding, like, I didn't know how to dream big. I didn't know that I didn't have limits or boundaries. I think I had just taken the life that had been prescribed to me because I'm the oldest daughter. I'm the oldest grandchild. I was just always the good girl in my family who did what was asked of her and didn't really provide much pushback. And then when I went to college, I really started to like learn myself. And in me going to grad school, I ended up working at Emory.
Right.
I ended up getting a 6-figure job in New York now, and just kind of marking off those things before my deadline. Yeah. And I think for me, it was like, okay, God, well, you've called me to do all these great things, and like, you're giving me this in my 20s. I thought this was my life plan. And he was like, I need you to write another plan.
No, it's like bigger.
Yeah, think bigger. And so, that is something that I think we carry with us. And going back to the statement that you made of you've kept kind of like that grounding reminder for yourself of like, hey, this is where I started, this is how far I've come. But also it's like you've prophesized over what life you wanted and what you were going to manifest and bring into fruition. And I know we say manifest and fruition in the words and the buzz, but with real context, we're in it, babe. We're in the living dream. And so I want to ask you, Bianca, as a part of our next segment, you had a plan, and not necessarily that it was all together or that it was perfect, but you had a vision. And I was on the phone with you. You were like, well, what do you think about this color scheme? And what do you think about this? And what do you think about the name? And all of the things. And you just kind of built from that. Obviously, ideally, before you pivot, you have a plan. But to you, what does that look like? What should that feel like? What's the research that you should be doing? Like, there's a method to the madness, because you took a calculated risk, because you're also you. Like, I knew you wasn't going to jump off the deep end.
I'm still in corporate, y'all.
But, tell the people or share with them what that looks like to make a calculated risk. And, if you're going to make a jump, what does that look before you leap look like?
I would say, and thank you for asking that question. I would say for me, as I said, like, I'm on the phone with her. I'm making it. I made the logo, the name, switched everything, did the caption in
literally
in
a phone call.
In a phone call in an hour or two. Because
rap.
it was just calling me. So at that point, I didn't have a plan. But going forward, yes, it's important to like, okay, I have this nag. I have this vision. It's like, okay, I'm switching over. Then it's like, okay, like, I'm doing it. It's like, your training wheel. It's like, okay, I'm doing it. It's like, I just started out with, I was like, let me just do one post a week. Like, my business was it's still very social media based. It's a media company. So it's like, I was like, let me do one post a week. Let me just build up consistency and build up my discipline. Cause like what I've taken from my corporate experience, those transferable skills we told y'all about. And it's just like, okay, let me just do it once a week. Then honestly, I really got to a point where it's like, okay, what else is nagging me? What are the other things that I'm being called to showcase? And it was also like, all right, don't just tell people where to go, like show what the culture looks like. And so there were a lot of people, and like, there's so many people I could thank along the way. Like, y'all know who y'all are that like were with me when I had those 300 followers. Y'all are probably one of them. Yeah. And like, y'all really have supported me all this way through, and I helped. And like you said, impact is important. Yeah. From that day of starting it, I knew impact was going to be the most important thing. And I was just like, all right, let me start putting method to the madness. Yeah. And really just build consistency, discipline, but also keep that impact. And that's why I never changed that caption as the forefront. And so through the past like 2.5 years, it's been like, so many people have been able to impact their career, impact people or inspire people to just start something, right? I wanted it to be a platform for people to just be like, I can go out and I could start building a social group or a community, because that's what I need. And we talked about community as, a part of self-care and part of mental health. And so I love, and I don't want to, I don't cry or anything, but stop. It's just the communities that have sprung out of the NOLA Collective have been beautiful. Yeah.
Stop. I'm going to cry with you, because this is one of the products of that. And this is what happens when you operate in purpose. I think even to some of your other close friends with NOLA Miles Club and other ventures that I just won't even speak on, because Bianca is such a glue in her friendships. And she is the friend that is like always positive and always uplifting and always supportive and encouraging. And I think it's a bit of a gift, but it's also, I think, like, you're just a special person who's been called. Like, that's a part of your talents and gifts that God has given you to help heal this world. Yeah. And I've watched you do it. And, like, it's inspired me to expand myself and to share myself with the world, and knowing that, like, I may not be for everybody, and that's okay. Yes. But there's a world of people who will love me, that I'm for. Yes. Yeah. And that I can help. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest gift in our friendship that you've ever given me as a friend, is to like help light my light so that I can be a light to others.
And honestly, it's just helping you light your light in times where it may be dim, but your light shines bright. So
it does it.
It does. And like we talked about in previous episodes, like you you have a gift. One, wisdom is one of your gifts. I'll tell you this a lot.
You do say
And
that
then
often.
two, just identifying like you really are protective over those vulnerable people that need it. And like that's not something that is innate to everyone, and that's something really special.
No, and I appreciate you saying that because it segues into another point that I wanted to talk about. And it's a real point of when you're prioritizing your pivot, whether that is from grad school into or undergrad into grad school, or let's just take it back. When you're prioritizing your pivot and you're going from high school to college or undergraduate to graduate or college graduation period into your first role, or the first job that requires you to move away from everything that you know and take that leap of faith, it gets lonely.
Yeah, it's those transition periods that are difficult.
Success, but the transitions, but even like when you're in a season of grind, because I think that's us now of like we're not necessarily like pivoting or in transition, but we're building something.
Correct.
And we're building something that like a lot of our friends may not even understand for real, because how many of our friends have podcasts? But they're supportive and they're they're rocking with us, but even still they don't understand the full gambit of what it is to be in operations when it comes to production of we have to schedule a venue, we have to schedule our team, we have to do glam and get our outfits and get hair, like, and it sounds light and fun and airy, but it can be stress inducing, and it's hard when you don't have people who quite understand the nuances of what you're going through. And I think that can be applied to anything, whether you're a first generation college student or you're the first one that's not taking a blue collar route or a trade type of role, or pivoting in the other direction. If everyone's been a doctor, if everyone's been a lawyer, and now you're going out and saying, I want to be an entrepreneur and I have this dream, it's hard. Gets lonely too, because like we say all the time, God gave you your vision. And sometimes everybody can't see it.
I feel like yes, and I've definitely experienced that with beginning, because like sometimes, especially if you have a business that's not a physical product, people will be like, "Oh, okay, that's nice."
That was cute.
It's cute. And some people will be like, "Oh, that's cute, that's nice," but then it's like, no, until like I don't know. I feel like honestly, when you came help me for Essence, like I feel like that was the turning point to where people like, oh no, you actually.
I saw it since we was on the phone. I'm not gonna lie to you. I saw it.
You actually doing something, but sometimes like that was a whole year and a half, so it's like you will have a lot of times where people aren't understanding. And so like I do value the relationships like with you, like with Brent, of like people that I'm able to like share things with, or like even just like bounce ideas off of. I will give him a little plug.
Come on, Brent.
Yes, I'm gonna give him a plug because I feel like even before, because I'm also on the management team for Newsgrounds, another media platform in New Orleans that tells us all about culture and news in New Orleans. And I definitely want to highlight and give Newsgrounds a plug because I feel like working with Brent and working with everybody on the team, it's like, one, I'm just very happy that he was like, oh yeah, come on the team. But also I've been able to flex a different skill and one, help the Nutri-Grounds business, and then also it's helping the NOLA Collective. But just working with him, like I think before, and I don't think I even told him this. I'm gonna tell him, obviously.
Let's do it now.
To tell him, but I wanted him to be my mentor at one point, and he's a peer. Like we're the same age. But I think I even told you this. I was like, oh, I think I want to ask him to be my mentor, and then like right after that,
God just popped him up in your life.
Yeah, he was like, oh, like you want to join the Nutri-Grounds team, and then obviously now I'm helping, using my strategy and operation skills more so in that capacity. But still, it's all media. So half my life healthcare, half my life media. But I did want to give Brent a shout out because he's a very significant part, I feel like, in my story for entrepreneurism.
Yeah, no, and even to that point, like, truth be told, Brent has come in clutch for this multiple times. So like I want to thank Brent for that. Even though like our relationship is more vast or broad, it's just something about community with the right people and being in alignment with the right people when you start prioritizing your pivot in the right way and it's attached to your purpose. We say this all the time of like, you may not have everything that you need, but God will send you friends along the way to get you through.
Say it again.
I can't. That was a bar. But like God really will send you resources and friends. Like, like it wasn't until I'll even speak just for me, until I was ready to receive that type of help or community, or to say like, I'm ready to blossom, I'm ready to grow, that God sent me someone to carry me and usher me into that season. And I think going back to the loneliness, something that I would like to speak on just through personal experience, and you've experienced it as well, but like, everybody doesn't get to go with you.
No.
And not in an arrogant or cocky or pompous way, but in a true, like, everybody just doesn't get it where you are. And that's okay, because what's to say that dynamic wasn't supposed to fizzle out and had a time frame, or that it won't come back. But going back to success is lonely. Like, when you're that first person in college and all your friends are still at the rec and still going to the movies and still trying to, go to spring break and all this stuff, and you're like, no, I really got to study. And they're like, oh, you don't rock with us no more, or you can't answer the phone, or you acting brand new, or you've moved away out of state. I know that was my instance of like, a lot of my relationship changed, both in friendships, both in romance and in family, when I moved out of the state for the first time. Yeah. And then after that, I moved even further out of the state, and dynamics shifted again.
I know. I was about to ask you, when was the time, or first time, that you really felt that? And
okay. So I would say COVID, and I know that's a cliche answer, but for anyone who doesn't know, I was actually diagnosed with a respiratory autoimmune disorder in March of 2020. So very interesting time, because there were a lot of care treatments and procedures that I needed that were unavailable to me at the time, because they had been like rationed out to people with higher levels of acuity. So
that's hard during that time.
Yes. Anyone who doesn't know what that means, it just meant that there were people who were sicker than I was at that point in time. And so they, leadership, administration, care teams had made the decision to delay my care plan in order to save other lives. Because we're talking about ventilators, we're talking about breathing treatments, respiratory X, Y, and Z. But basically, saying all that to say, when I first went to the ED to figure out what was wrong, I had to get a CAT scan. I remember, I think we knew each other at this point. Yes. Because I called you about it after, of like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But basically, I went to the ED and I had to go by myself, because there was all these restrictions with COVID of you couldn't have a person with you. So I was by myself. And I remember going to get my CT scan done. The radiologist looked so scared. And then I went back to the room and I waited for the physician to come in. And basically he told me my CT scan lit up like a Christmas tree, and that he was referring me to a hematology oncologist because it could be cancer.
And that's difficult, especially like you being in the war, or you, it's a difficult time because you were going to transition to New Orleans, right?
I was still in grad school at this time. There. So I'm getting this diagnosis. The world is in flux. I'm still just trying to graduate. And I'm like, am I even working towards anything for these past 2 years? Because school might shut down. I still have this job that I've signed a contract for, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to transition to that. And if I do, I don't know what that's going to look like on the other side. I don't know. And so in the midst of that, I transition and I'm figuring things out, and I'm also entering healthcare where like everyone's like mask, like things for us were a lot more critical than maybe for the masses. And then we were in a hot spot in Louisiana. So it's not just like how and not to discredit or disparage or to take away from what other people dealt with, but Louisiana is a very niche place, and like even going back to like food and the culture and all the things that has contributed to some of the largest rates of hypertension and diabetes and just COPD, health outcomes for that patient population. And so Louisiana got hit hard. And so for my first job transitioning, they were like, hey, we need you to work. We need you to be in a leadership role. This is what you came out here for. It's going to be great. You're going to be able to sell this to anybody. You worked in COVID. But it was like, I'm taking care of people day to day and sacrificing and putting my health on the line because I'm still battling. It ended up, my diagnosis was sarcoidosis. So anybody who knows what that is, if you know, you know. But I'm battling with that diagnosis of sarcoidosis while also going into my first big girl job where they have plopped me into a leadership role.
Yes, we were so worried for your class coming
gosh.
in. And, you know, we're on the other side of it. I'm the class before her in the fellowship. So it's
You're
like
the command center.
Yeah, we had, I think, a good 3 months before y'all came, 3 or 4 months. And one is, you know, those conversations of, okay, are we bringing in these new people? Are we not? Then it's like y'all were just so much like thrown in because we were already there a year prior. So it's like, okay, they're like comfortable with us. They know us.
They had the rapport. They trusted. They knew your capabilities of send this person there, send this person there. Yeah.
And then it's like, I just felt so bad, but y'all worked through it. And like, that was a huge transition for all of y'all.
Yeah.
And especially you, like you said, with you know, with your diagnosis and trying to make sure, I'm sure you're like, okay, well, who do I even see when I come down
here? And that
here?
was the thing. I had already had a care team primed through Northside. Shout out to Northside, Atlanta. But even in that, I was still a student. And so there were certain financial incentives that I was able to tap into because I couldn't afford that at the time. Me going into that job, you know, full time and having benefits, I didn't have those same incentives. So it was like, okay, if I need another scan, that's $500 that I don't have.
Yeah.
And so saying all that to say of where it got lonely was when COVID was rampant, we were working over 12-hour shifts daily in community. Like we were setting up shops, whether it was a church, a nursing home, a prison. You know, we could be with high VIP clientele where it's like we need checks and balances and backgrounds and, you know, all these things. There were times where we were setting up in fields, like
I remember I came help y'all a few times.
Yes, but like that takes a toll on your body being out in the elements and, you know, having to assess where everyone is. And I think to tie back in the lonely piece, all of my friends and family back in Georgia just didn't get it.
Yeah.
They couldn't understand or fathom or wrap their head around of like, she's not really that busy. Like she's just being iffy or she's not talking to us. And it's like, honestly, I'm fighting for my life. And for the lives of other people, going back to that protected space of like, even at my most vulnerable, I'm still showing up for vulnerable populations and trying to be rooted in purpose and be rooting in what I think God has created me for and to be obedient in that way. And, you know, for some people, they saw that. And for others, you know, it you know, put a strain on the relationship, unfortunately. But I think going back to kind of where we started with you giving Brent his shout out and us giving Thad his flowers, in that it ushered in the people and the resources that I needed to take me to new heights and to where now it's like I don't look back with any disdain or any uncomfort or any sad feelings because I know that season in my life was just up.
Yeah.
And even in that, it's like it created the capacity and the bandwidth for me to be able to receive all the new things in this new season. So that was my loneliest. I don't think I've ever in life felt that lonely again. But also because I felt that, I now know the indicators of when I'm clicking down to never get that low again.
Or identify in others. But I do want to circle back to your point of people not understanding when you're like, oh, like she's not that busy.
Oh, like I'm busy. We have the same 24 hours, but like I'm using all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 around the clock.
And so COVID is a great example of that. And I feel like there's been multiple points throughout my career. I feel like my first time learning of just like people like, oh, you can't take everybody with you and people don't understand was taking the NCLEX, like taking that nursing license and having to like really zone in on that because most of my friends, none of my friends were nursing.
Yeah.
And then now it's like I love that point of like, or not love it, but like it is something that is repeatedly coming up in my life. Like people are like, oh, you're not really that busy. You got time, and like I make time for things, and like I think it's a good segue into talking about, you know, that loneliness, and like we talked about like people not understanding because you have to be intrinsically motivated to get to where you want to be, or just like to keep pouring into your purpose, because sometimes you don't know where you're going.
No, and I think when you make it look easy, when you don't look like what you've been through, people think it's easy.
Correct.
And that's not the truth. Like in anything that you do, whether it's an athlete and you're seeing them, you know, do free throws and 3-point or whatever, or they're making, do you know how much practice and preparation that took for you to see that final product? And I think we don't give enough credence to the process and what that journey looks like. We just see the end result and mark people for that, but there's a journey that got there. And I think before we pivot into being intrinsically motivated, because sometimes you got to do that for yourself when you're on your own, but it's knowing that when you're deciding to make a pivot choice, that's a choice for you. And it doesn't necessarily need to come with validation or criticism or critique or anything of that sort. If it is enough for you, go.
Yeah, and I like to say you have to. Honestly, I feel like pivoting, you have to be that intrinsic internal motivation because there's not going to be that applause like we had said, and
Girl,
then like it's not going to come.
Threw me no party.
It's not going to come for a very long time because, as you mentioned, people usually don't care about the journey or like don't even care to ask. I think I have and this is like probably I don't know if I've ever shared this, but when people say like, oh, I inspire them and like they don't really know me, I'm not like.
You're not
I'm flattered. I'm not wowed.
Yeah,
I'm not super flattered. I'm like, okay, like that's great. Like I'm guessing you saw something like that end result, right? But if you tell me I inspire you and you don't ask me anything about like how I got there or like what I do, I kind of it's just like,
where's that rooted? Is this like clout and like, oh, I see you. You're an it girl. I want to. Yeah. Is this truly admiration, or are you doing this to try to garner proximity to access?
Or honestly, I really see it more because like that is a little bit of a second, but I just see it more as like you're that person so focused on just like the glitz and glam.
Ooh,
and they're not really
out the people like you don't have substance.
They're focused on the glitz and glam. They see all the good stuff and they're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. Yeah. But it's like just take time. And I do appreciate all the people who like I said, we said this in a previous episode of just like ask people for advice or ask people for help and they'll help you.
Yeah.
I love when people are like, hey, can we grab coffee?
Yeah.
Can we just have a quick chat? And especially if you come to me, look, this is advice. You come to somebody correct, and we talked about this probably in a mentorship episode. If you come and email them and ask to set up a meeting and you come with an agenda and like what you want to actually get out of this meeting and they know up front, it's like it makes it such a fulfilling thing because like I'm able to pour into them, they're able to get something from it, and it's like it's just cohesion. But when people kind of say like, oh, you inspire me, but then there's nothing behind it, there's no substance, it's like kind of like I'm like, all right, I think you're just looking at the shiny object.
Yeah. No, I hear that and I feel that, and I think we've definitely experienced that like respectively. We've now experienced it together. And I think another thing to call out with that is the people that will tell you no to helping you are not people that you want helping you anyway. So don't be discouraged if you're trying to like figure out where your resources are as you enter this new landscape, because think about the person you are. Again, you should be someone, or most people want to help other people.
They do.
And, you know, if you're someone who wants to help other people, you need to be in community with people who have those same values and are aligned in that way. And if not, then they're not your people. Because we just said everybody can't go. And that's fine. Everybody cannot go. And that is just one of those things that is what it is. And we will leave it there.
Yes.
But I think in terms of maximizing your prioritization and the power of a 9-to-5, I think the first thing is just really understanding that it's not about doing everything, but it's about doing what matters the most at the time. Like what's going to give you the greatest impact, what's going to be the greatest return on investment. And I think, you know, going back to the fellowship, something that we had to use as an indicator or a marker was that if everything is a priority, nothing is.
Yes.
See, we know it so well. Nothing is.
I'll say we've left the fellowship with a lot of different quotes, good and bad.
Yes. And so I think in that, you know, when trying to figure out like, everything feels red. How do I decide what to move on first? I think you ask yourself things like, what actually is going to move the business forward?
Right.
Or what is your mission for this quarter or for this month or for this assignment? Like, what is the thing that you're trying to get done? What out of the things that is red is going to give you the biggest impact in moving that needle forward? I think another thing is urgency. Like, is it something that's really urgent, or is just my ego telling me, oh, I'm running out of time. Like the Alice in Wonderland or Alice in Wonderland, like rabbit with the clock of like, I'm late for a very important date. Like, are you really late? Yeah. Or are you just delayed in this moment, but delayed is not denied.
Correct.
And this can sit on the back burner until it's ready to be brought earthside or it's ready to be made tangible. Sorry. My last little thing was just going to be, another thing to think about is, going back to business acumen, big things are visibility, revenue, because you gotta stay afloat and keep the lights on.
You gotta have money coming in.
Yes. And then I think brand trust, and do people really believe and can they buy into what you're selling? And I don't even like saying selling. I think the world is kind of made up of producers and consumers. So once you figure out which end of the totem pole you want to be on, then fine. But if you're a producer, I think those three things of visibility, brand reliability and trust, and then revenue is your top three things that I would say matter. And that is
I do agree.
triad that changes, but those are the three things that I would definitely recommend keeping high level when everything feels like it has to be done.
Yeah, and I agree. And just seeing it come in my daily work, I would say my weeks they're a little crazy, and people ask all the time, like, you talked about it. You're like, I'm great at organization, the scaling, but it's like I'm very intentional about my week, especially with juggling multiple babies, multiple businesses. And so I would say when it comes to prioritization, just how you were saying, like, there's certain things where it's like, it's something is time sensitive. Yeah. So that has to go first. Then it's like we are running businesses that are I would say customer facing, to where it's like every single day there's something that has to be in front of like my customers essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's like I had to build that discipline. We talked about it before, and then really just have the organization. And from like how I organize, and I got this from Morgan DeBon. Yes. Shout out to you. Please come on our show.
We love you.
Yes. But I was privileged enough to be on a call with her. And just hearing her talk about how you organize her week. And really it's about themes. And so I've taken that, adopted to my life of just like, all right, on certain days I do content. That's usually Sunday and Monday. But also when it comes to like building and talking to, like we have a NutriGrounds team, we make sure we do that on Tuesday. So you're doing things at the beginning of the week. So if somebody has questions or somebody has something to give to you, a deliverable, by the end of the week, they get it to you, right?
That turnaround,
The turnarounds.
It's built in.
Yeah. And then once you get to the end of the week or maybe middle to end, you're dealing more with strategy because then it's like, okay, it's more about like maybe the management team or the leaders. So it's like there are lots of resources that deal with this, but like I know we're all in such a unique space to where it's like we are juggling the corporate, the 9 to 5, everything in between. Sometimes people may do, a little side business just because it's their passion. It's like trying to do all that in 1 week and do self-care.
It's
overwhelming. But really looking and seeing, okay, what themes can I put for these days, and just reaching out to people and asking is probably my advice I would give with maximizing prioritization.
No, I love that. And I think going into more so our final reflection, when I think about like questions that I wish that I would have asked myself at some of the beginning of the journey, or like if someone had tasked me with it at the beginning, maybe I would have had longer strides of success, or I would have gotten to the things I wanted quicker. But I think a prompt that I think about a lot is, what part of my pivot am I procrastinating? Because I spent so long conceptualizing this podcast and just other entrepreneurial ventures. And I was scared to move my feet. I didn't know what I would be jumping into. I didn't know if I had what it would take to be successful in, these different endeavors. And so I really had to sit with that of, what aspects of this am I procrastinating on, and why? Like, where is that rooted? And as I started to do, some of the work around that and healing it, along with like, connecting with you and asking you like, Bianca, will you do this with me? Or what do you think about this? Because also, I don't think you guys like know that I had to like pitch this to Bianca to like bring her on board to like come with me on my vision. And it made sense. It was a thing that we both agreed was mutually beneficial for us. But also, Bianca was just being an endearing friend and loving and said yes. But
and I love podcasts and I love you, so it worked out. It was a good marriage.
But in that, I think I really had to sit with myself to figure out like, why won't I move on this when I know it's what I'm supposed to be doing?
And I feel like we can have a whole episode on like procrastinating your pivot, because I go through this. Like there are some things that I have for like business ideas that I have not even touched on yet, or I've moved down my timeline, because y'all know I do a strategic plan, I'm strategy, but it's just like I'll move it down because like, okay, well, sometimes you get comfortable and then sometimes it's like, all right, this is working. So it's like, well, maybe I don't have to do that just right now. But sometimes you have to, like you said, reflect and see how can I heal that part and what is really blocking me from doing it.
Yeah. And I think another piece of that is, this is a very faith-based podcast. Baby, we are covered in the cloak of the Lord.
Hello.
And so I think another thing for both of us is that we don't move on anything unless we bring it to God first. And we ask God, to allow us to trust him in this season of uncertainty and to allow his will to be done over our life. And if we put something in his hands, we just ask God that you protect and provide over us so much and so well that we know that we're going to be fine.
Yeah, like, we'll always be covered.
We're always covered. And it's worked for us. And I think too, like when you pray, together and you amplify that voice and you come into agreement with God, he moves. And so even for us, it's the faith of a mustard seed. But even in our friendship, we've planted that seed and we're starting to see, little sprouts and things coming up out the ground. So
we say we have to be careful about what we say because
things happen. Because things happen. Yeah. If Bianca and I put our brains together, girl, child.
Things happen.
Things happen. And so I think for us, as our final pieces of encouragement for this episode, but also for the season, we really just want to highlight that, if ever you're thinking about pivoting or trying something new, or you're, comparing yourself to what you see other people doing and you feel like maybe you're not doing enough, it's important for you to remember that you are not behind, you're building. And, just keep showing up, keep trusting the vision that God gave you, because God gave you that vision, even if no one else sees it.
Yeah, so just keep going.
Yeah. Like if it lives inside of you, it has to be something that comes out because God wouldn't have placed that on your heart.
Yeah.
Without divine purpose. And
send your people, just like you said.
Yeah.
Send those people to help you.
I was going to say, I think another piece of that I would like to add is that and you told me this, I think, I'm going to give you the credit even if you didn't. Bianca get the credit even if not. But when you don't operate in your purpose and do the things that you're supposed to be doing, you're stifling all the people behind you that you're meant to help and like push forward to their thing or connect with their gifts. And that was so impactful for me.
I would say that is something I was going to bring it up earlier, especially when you talked about that, because what if I never...
No, truly, it's all aligned. And I think even in that, like my biggest fear in life, we've talked about this in episodes before, I lost a parent as a teenager. And so I got really comfortable with the idea of like morbidity and, what that looks like when we all pass. And I think I'm not necessarily afraid to go. Like, I'm not afraid of death. I think it's one of those things of like, we're all born, we all die. Like, that's the one thing that we know in life that's finite. It's coming. We don't know when, but confirmed. It's coming.
Yeah.
I think one of my greatest fears is meeting our Father and kneeling at his feet, and he's disappointed in me because I didn't complete my assignment.
Yeah.
And so you imparting that on me was so profound because it was my ticket for God to meet me at the gates and say, job well done, my child.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know where this journey will take us. I don't know who will help. And maybe, we won't know because our listeners are so young and so full of life and potential. So we may not know what the impact of this has for the next 20 years, but I'm thankful and I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of you guys for stepping out on faith and believing in yourselves. And we're here for y'all. Like, we're here, like we said, to be the big sisters and to put y'all on game and put y'all down on anything. So
we're the podcast that we wish we had when we were early careerists in college and high school. This is just for anybody. And like I like to say, if you take something from this, pour it into somebody else.
Yeah. So I think that's a beautiful takeaway, and I think that's the end.
Yes,
so
that is the end.
It's summertime, as you can see. You know, she has on her orange, I have on my yellow. We're about to clock out and have some fun.
Yes.
But we will be back sooner than later. But as usual, keep up with us on all of our social media platforms. So on Instagram, you can find us on or at standonbusiness.pod. We're also on LinkedIn and on YouTube and on all streaming services where you listen to podcasts. All streaming services where you listen to podcasts. So we thank you for hanging in there with us this season. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Be any final words?
Find your community, find your purpose, and find what you love to do.
I love it.
Yeah.
I have nothing else to say. Season 1, it's a wrap. Season 2, we coming for you.
Bye.
Bye.